I forgot mine at home, so we're good.
I have my notes on my front part,
Okay.
so that's what I'll be
Oh,
looking at.
smart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
There we go. Oh.
Okay, so yeah, so like I said, it'll be like we have like about an hour to tape, and then we'll edit it down a bit
Okay.
for the final. I think we'll start releasing hopefully in like a week or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so I think you guys might air like towards the end of December. I've been like loosely theming it out, like so maybe around Thanksgiving.
Awesome.
Okay.
So you guys are family oriented.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Perfect.
All right. We'll throw some Thanksgiving jewels in there. Then.
Right. And don't overthink it. You know,
Okay.
like I have a loose outline about the stuff that we talked about in terms of like a flow, and then. I also talked to Jennifer, just like, I think it's what's so unique about both of you is like, I can tell how united you are as a couple.
Right.
And I think that's like really something valuable for listeners. You know, you always hear that like when something bad happens with the child that the statistics for divorce go up so much. And
Yes.
you guys just seem rock solid. I'm sure that there are challenges, but if it's totally up to your comfortableness, however much you want to dive into that or not.
Sure.
But just to put it on the table, I think there's like real value.
Absolutely. Yes.
And then we talked about faith, and both of us talked about faith.
Right.
And I know that I have some listeners who are not familiar with the language around faith, and so that's what I was kind of trying to articulate very poorly that day when we chatted on the phone. So I apologize.
No, it's all
I was
good.
having one of those mornings. It was like back to back to back, and hadn't gotten
Here.
sleep, so I apologize. I
No,
was like,
no, you don't have to
jumbling.
apologize
Yeah,
for
it's
anything.
fine.
No, not at all.
But that's what I meant is like some listeners might not understand like the language around
Right.
it.
Sure.
So just be thinking of like
Of
how to
course.
explain this to yourself before
Okay.
you started going
Yes.
Gotcha.
to church.
Right.
In 2012.
Got it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, and like what that looked like to come into, because I know like even my doctor team, I got really burned by the church. So we talked about that. I'm like a recovering Christian. So
Right.
but my doctor team has often said like you need to find your spiritual life, but it's so vulnerable and traumatic for me that I'm still trying to like figure out what that means. But I just think that's interesting because you guys have overcome so much, and that narrative of like you have to find your spiritual life is like crosses all boundaries. You know, I was surprised to hear these scientists tell me about that. So I think that's kind of interesting too. So those are just like some touch points, and obviously like I think we have a lot to go on.
Yeah.
Sure.
For sure.
So I'll
I'm
probably
sorry, real quick. What did you mean by doctor team?
Oh, my doctor's team?
Yeah.
Oh, I have I thought we talked about this. I have a brain disease. And
You told me vaguely. I don't.
did I tell you vaguely?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yes, you did. You did. Yes, you did.
Yeah, I have a brain disease.
Okay.
So I just actually the summit, it's the Loud Summit, right?
Yeah.
The
Sorry, I
Loud
have
Summit
hair on
in
my
June.
face somewhere.
No, it's okay.
That was the first time I spoke for like probably the second time I spoke since I got diagnosed,
Really?
which was in 2017.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's but yeah, so I swear I have my hair on my face.
No, it's okay.
No, you good?
Okay. I got diagnosed in 2017 with temporal lobe seizures, and the reason I have seizures is because I have this autoimmune disease which inflames my brain.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And then because of that, I have cognitive dysfunction, which is why some days I'm just like talking in circles.
No.
So doing a podcast is really ironic.
Yeah. No,
I
you're
think
doing
the
great.
perfect person, because
Absolutely.
people who are going through something similar, or even if it's different, can pull something from your story. And you do it. Just what I know of you, Jessica, you are already an inspirational person based on what you've done so far in your life and what you've committed to as your cause. So,
Yes, it's true.
yes, this is
This is
actually
about me celebrating you guys.
No.
This is intended for you. Yes.
Kids for Inspiration is your organization.
KS.
KS.
For number 4, inspiration.
KS for Inspiration.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
LLC. No, you don't have to.
KS for Inspiration LLC 501c3.
But we're not a nonprofit. That's the
Oh, are you for profit?
for profit. Yes.
Oh my
Not a
goodness, I'm so glad you
Yes.
said that. Okay. would like to talk to you about that offline because I'm thinking about moving to a for-profit model.
Yeah, it's too many restrictions.
Too many nonprofits.
Yeah.
Are you B Corp?
No, just straight up
LLC.
Yeah,
Just straight up boss.
straight up.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh wait, I need to take my earrings
Is
out.
this better? Yeah. Okay. I was gonna say so. Let's see.
So, am I in the right view for your camera?
Yep, we're all set up.
Feels good now.
This will just go on YouTube as like a complimentary.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
KS4 Inspiration, LLC,
That's right.
for profit.
For
Gotta get that money.
Yeah.
Can I lower this a little bit? Is that possible?
Nope, that's as low as it goes.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
You just gotta
I'll
get
sit
up.
up high.
You gotta get up all in there. You just
I'll be up here. This one
Alright,
is
so I
mine.
was eavesdropping and setting the levels while you guys were talking, so I think
Okay.
everything sounds good.
okay.
Just maybe check it for yourself, make sure the volume in your ears is good.
Yes. Feels good.
Can I go up just a
Testing,
tiny
testing.
bit for me?
Yeah.
Hello,
that a shot.
hello. Can you
I
guys
can
tell me about what you had for breakfast?
Did I eat breakfast? I had coffee. I didn't have breakfast.
Just
I
a
had honey. nut
tiny bit
toast.
higher. I don't know. I'm deaf today.
I wonder if it's in your headphones.
My headphones.
Should I talk a little
Because you
louder?
can turn off the individual headphones.
Hmm?
Because the volume over here is up high on her mic, so maybe your headphones are turned down.
Oh, okay.
So just follow the cord from your headphones back to the amp, and then
Oh, okay. Oh wow, that's like that's way
Okay.
helpful.
Turn
Yeah,
my
it's-
headphones up.
turn them up yourself.
You heard that, Dave Chappelle, though.
All right, so everything sounds good over here. If you're happy, we'll do 3, 2, 1, and then it's all you.
Okay, cool. Have you guys seen that film Rhythm and Flow? Just out random.
Yes,
Okay.
with Terrence Howard, Taraji P.
No, Rhythm and Flow, the Netflix special.
Oh no.
Okay.
Rhythm. No.
Okay. Anyway,
Okay.
unrelated.
I
I'll
just
tell you
finished
about it
it
later.
last night.
Okay.
Ready to go?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
Hustle and Flow.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, and welcome to I'll Go First. I am joined by a couple, our first couple on the podcast,
Yeah.
married couple,
There we go.
Jennifer and Kevin Saunders. Kevin and I met at a Loud Summit about mental health.
Yep.
It was kind of neat. We were just talking about this, but it was the second time I've spoken since I got sick. So it was like kind of a big deal. Kevin is an amazing spoken word artist.
Stop.
He is.
So good.
Oh.
He runs
Being modest.
a company called KS4 Inspiration.
That's right.
And Jennifer is a pediatric nurse.
Yes.
But you're actually a LPN?
I'm a nurse practitioner.
Nurse
but I
practitioner.
It's okay. But I
Snaps
practice
for that.
Yes, thank you. And I practice as a RN, a registered nurse, and I also teach. I'm a clinical adjunct professor at Pace University.
That's so boss.
Thank
Yeah, she is.
Yeah. What is it that you teach?
you. Pediatric nursing.
That is so cool.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Kevin, can you tell us a little bit about your company?
Yes, sure. So, KS for Inspiration, the purpose of it is to provide inspiration and education to the next generation. We're just trying to help the next generation, particularly middle school, high school, and college students, start to set more meaningful goals. We want them to tap into their passion, into their purpose, and realize they don't need to make all of their decisions based upon just finite material things, which are important, but are not as important as understanding why you're here on this earth and what your role is, why you're here. So that's what KS for Inspiration is meant to do, and we do it through workshops. We do it through seminars. We do it through just random speaking engagements. We do it through podcasts. We do it through Instagram. We do it through everything.
Oh my gosh. I just can feel the excitement. Well, when I think about, we actually had Caleb Perkins on the show.
Yes.
Kevin knows Caleb. We all spoke at the Loud Summit.
That's right.
And it was funny because he's really passionate about purpose for young people as well. And I hear you talk about elementary, middle school, high school. And I don't know what it is, but when I think of teenagers, so my husband and I think about have kids. And I'm like, I could maybe, okay, I'm coming around to it. But then when I see teenagers, I'm like, no, kid, no.
Right.
So like, the fact that you're passionate about that age group, like,
Yes.
bless you, props to you. That is special.
I understand that teenagers are not the easiest demographic to reach because they're really in such a pivotal time of their lives. And for that very reason, that is why I go to speak to them, because they're in this weird place where they may not feel comfortable confiding in their parents who have raised them all their lives. And they may be introduced to influences around them that may not be the most healthy, but they may not be at a stage where they can discern those positive relationships from the negative ones. On top of that, they're trying to figure out who they are. So just having a little bit of infusion of positivity and really encouraging them to look forward into the future is very important. That is why we go to that age group. Starts at teenagers, but we go deeper as well.
How in the world do you get them to pay attention?
Poetry.
Right.
Now you see where it all comes to.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully we'll get to hear a little bit about that later. But
Right,
you're also online, so we can definitely check out some of your clips as well.
Oh, certainly. ks4inspiration.com.
There you go.
Visit it. Instagram at ks4inspiration. Facebook at ks4inspiration. We're all over.
You're
the place.
everywhere.
Yes. We
You're
got to
everywhere.
be nowadays.
I mean, I understand. That's where the teenagers are.
Exactly.
Right.
We got to go. I'm everywhere except for Snapchat.
Wait.
I refuse to go.
I was just going to ask you about that.
I refuse to go to
I was gonna ask you
Snapchat.
about that.
That's where I draw the line. They don't want me there. I don't want to be there. That's fine. Let's go to Instagram.
And that is
and
called Boundaries with Children.
That's right.
That's it.
You guys have 2 children.
We do.
There's Isaiah and
Noah.
Noah.
Yes.
Yes.
I love those names.
Thank you.
What I loved about your story, Kevin and Jennifer, is the story of Isaiah. That's what you spoke about at the conference.
Yeah.
He has cerebral palsy.
Yes, correct.
And it was amazing that you're like, you guys as parents, I can just, it is oozing off of them in the studio. I can just see just the calmness and the peacefulness you have despite this major challenge in your life. But can you give us a high version of what is happening in your home? And then I want to take it all the way back to that love story.
Yeah.
Sure. So currently, the 4 of us live at home. We live in Yonkers. Isaiah is 9 years old, and Noah is almost 6. He's 5, turning 6 in December. Isaiah was born extremely premature. So we had him when I was only 23 weeks pregnant. So
You were how old at that point?
I was 23. Yes, I was a baby.
23 weeks pregnant.
Correct.
Age 23.
Yep, 23.
Right out. Imagine, everyone listening, imagine you have just graduated college. You have a very premature birth.
Yes.
Just started her career, started nursing.
I did, yeah. We were babies. So Isaiah was born extremely premature, and he had a really, really, really rough hospital course. He stayed in the NICU for almost 5 months, the neonatal intensive ICU. And after coming home at almost 5 months old, he had multiple hospital readmissions, multiple pneumonias and colds and flus and anything that you could think of. So it was really, really rough. The first, I want to say 3 years of his life. We actually lived in a rehab center for about 14 months prior to him coming home when he was 3 years old. So it was a rough 3 years.
Yes, it was a long,
rough 3 years.
And then you arrived at 26.
Right. And then when he came...
26, you're only 26 years old. You've already gone through all this stuff.
That's right.
And then when he came home, I was actually pregnant with Noah. So that was a rough one. Yeah. And I was on a complete bed rest for that. So that was a tough time in our lives. It's funny. We don't even think about it, though, now.
Yeah.
Like, we almost forget about the fact that even happened unless someone brings it up. I'm like, oh, wow, yeah, that was rough.
That was rough.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine. I'm just thinking of myself when I was 23, and to put a child's life in my hands would have been highly irresponsible of anyone.
No.
Did you know that that there might be something going on before Isaiah was born?
We did. So at about 21 weeks, I just felt really sick. And I just so happened to have a regular checkup. And when I went, I remember the doctor saying, you have to be on bed rest because your cervix is opening prematurely. So I'm like, okay, go on bed rest. And 2 weeks later, went back for another checkup. Nothing changed. And I had to be admitted right away because I was in active labor. So I kind of had an idea for 2 weeks. And then I think about 5 days, we were able to postpone me giving birth. And during that time, right before giving birth, the doctor came in to Kev and I and said, listen, New York State says that your child is not viable yet, that, at 24 weeks is when you can actually give birth to a child who is viable. So it's your decision now if you want us to do everything we can for your child or if you want us to just stop right now, you give birth and we do nothing. And we just looked at each other and we said, nope, do everything that you can. So that's where we are now.
Was it like just a natural switch? Like
yeah.
You were like, yeah.
I don't think about this. I don't even remember. There was no conversation.
There was no discussion.
Yeah, we just said, no, that's our
you
child.
Have to do everything you can.
Mm-hmm. What was going on for you, Kevin, during this whole time? I can't imagine as a new dad.
Well,
and you were 24?
26 at that time.
Oh, you were mature. You
25?
were 26.
25.
I was 25.
Yeah.
Yes,
a whole 3 years older.
All right. I was a little bit more mature. No, but everything, this is always tough for me to recall because things happen so fast then. And as things happen for me, I'm very present in the moment, but I realize that I tend to let go of things that are painful for me. And that is really what allows me to be so high energy and out there with people and whatnot. So when I'm asked to recall the details, it's a struggle for me to reflect.
What were you feeling? Like,
yeah, what I felt, I know because during that point in time, I started writing down what I was thinking and feeling. So although I can't recall,
you were journaling.
I looked at my notes and
yeah.
I can recall via my notes what I was thinking. It was a struggle to understand that Isaiah may not be, quote unquote, a normal child, as people may want to call him, that he may have some issues. At that point in time, when they were trying to ask us what we wanted to do, they did let us know the risk that, him coming out, he can have, brain damage or, lungs underdeveloped, and certain aspects of what they explained ended up coming to pass. But even with that being explained,
what kind of aspects what were those specifics?
Right. So what happened was Isaiah, once he was born, he had chronic lung disease in the very beginning, meaning his lungs were underdeveloped. And with those underdeveloped lungs, that means he had to be intubated for a period of time, which means they had this tube stuck through going through his lungs.
How big is he? He's like the size of your hand.
He was 1 pound 6 ounces. So he fit in the
small.
palm of our hands when he was born.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah,
and
he did.
With that, building off of that, he was, of course, delayed, right? Because babies, you go to 9 months, really, before they reach term. So he had to do the remainder of his 4 months of growing, which should have been in a womb, inside an ICU in what looked like just an incubator. And we would come and we would do our best to hold them and spend time with them and try to feed. Jen would try to feed them and do all this stuff. But we would have to go home each night. Isaiah would have to stay there, and then we'd have to come back the next day, spend our time. And it was just like that for really the 4 months he was, after he was born. So we got home finally in December. We had a welcome home party with family and friends like a week before
he got home.
But it was sort of short-lived in a sense, because from that time going forward for really the next 3 years, we were in and out the hospital. So it was frustrating, and I was working at the time, right? I found myself in a place where I was very upset and I could not focus on work. So much so that just one day, I remember it was the Martin Luther King Day holiday. I was off from work and I was like, I can't even fathom going to work tomorrow. So I literally just called my boss the next day and I was like, listen, I really cannot focus on anything right now except for Isaiah. You know, I'm just giving you my 2 weeks. I couldn't do it formally, couldn't send an email, couldn't do anything like that.
Wow, so you had to stop working.
I didn't actually, because what happened was, and just so people know, I work for a company called Deloitte. It's a Big Four accounting firm. At that time, worked in the tax group. And Deloitte has a reputation of being one of the best companies to work for. Me telling them about my 2 weeks notice did not prompt them to just accept it. It was elevated. Another partner spoke to me and they said, Kev, I understand how you're feeling. You don't have to leave right now. Take a leave of absence, right? You may need that health care, right? You may need additional income.
Oh my gosh, a company that was like really understanding.
They were very understanding. And because of that conversation, I said, okay, let me go ahead and take this leave of absence. I came back 5-6 months later, sort of part-time. They worked with me through all that. And essentially 9 years later, I'm still with Deloitte in a different role.
Well, thank you, Deloitte.
Altogether, but
if you're listening to this,
they've been supportive through it all.
That's incredible.
And it was what I needed, because otherwise I would have made a decision based purely off of my emotion and what I was feeling at the time. So many of us do that.
So many of us do that. So was it that like you had this sounding board to kind of like, and the support, it sounds like you had a lot of support.
Yeah,
so
certainly.
Much support.
Certainly. Like, it comes down to a level of faith. Came down to me and Jen being on the same page. Came down to our families covering us.
Let's pause for a second. We were talking about this a little earlier, but I can't even think of the statistics, but I know the statistics are so high for couples who either have an unfortunate accident with their child or a life-altering situation with the other spouse,
right.
or a child passes, unfortunately, and the divorce rate goes up so much.
Right, it does.
How in the world do you guys keep it together?
God only. We actually, when we had Isaiah, we weren't married yet. We were actually engaged. And we got married when he was 10 months old.
So you were pregnant.
Right.
You had Isaiah.
Right.
So early. So you're in and out of the hospital. Then he comes home. And then you're still back and forth with the hospital. Fortunately, Kevin, you had some time from work. Right. And then you got married?
We did.
How in the world did you? I can't even imagine planning a wedding.
I didn't do much planning. I think a lot of my family and friends did most of it. The only thing I remember doing was picking the venue and picking my dress. That's about it.
It sounds like you guys just had an incredible community. So community was really a part of this.
Yes.
And then Kevin, you said that you guys were really just in sync.
Yes.
How?
We talked a lot. Actually, how it worked was because Isaiah was born so early, I was still living at my parents' house. Jen was still living at her parents' house. And when all this happened, I literally had to move in with Jen at her parents' house basically within that week, right?
Yes.
That Isaiah was born. Because I wasn't going to be in Yonkers, Jen be in Queens, and then she would be like the only one dealing with going to the hospital back and forth.
Right.
I needed to be there for her. I need to be there for Isaiah. So what ended up happening was we're now in one room, right, in her parents' house, and we see each other every day, right? And we spent a lot of time with each other, just like we did going back to our college days. Just creating the opportunity to speak and converse and really share what we're feeling in the moment is what I think allowed us to stay close together.
How did you figure out how to share your feelings with each other?
Well, I don't know if you remember this, Kev. One of the things that we did, especially when Isaiah came home, is we took shifts with taking care of him because he needed 24-hour care. It wasn't just like you have a baby who comes home and you have to feed them and, change them, burp them. It was a lot of medical care that had to go into taking care of Isaiah. So Kev would do the day shift and I would do the night shift. So that's how we would like do kind of like a either 6 on, 6 off type of thing.
Right.
And then sleep. That's how we actually, and then my mom and dad were awesome too. My mom would help out a lot and my dad would do a lot for us. So we just had a lot of family support at that time. And we just realized, okay, so this is how life is going to be. We just have to make it work.
That's right. And
so you like committed.
We
just
did.
like that moment in the hospital, you just decided.
That was it.
It was important for us because, for me, we weren't married at the time, but I was already committed in my head. And this is a pretty funny story, but this is before we knew Jen was pregnant. But it was the December leading up to that, where I played flag football on a Sunday and a Sunday night. My whole body hurts, of course, because football is no joke, even flag football. And I just was laying in my bed, and I happened to be thinking about Jen, and I noticed I was smiling so hard.
Oh, here's the love story.
I had such happiness and joy, and that was literally the moment when I said, okay, I think I'm going to have to propose to her. I'm going to do it. And I was so glad that I had that epiphany then. And I had a witness to it because I couldn't fall asleep. I was so excited now. I went down to the kitchen. My older brother, Vic, he happened to be there. And I was like, Vic, I think I'm going to propose to Jen. And Vic said, what? You sure? Kev, are you sure?
Is Vic older?
Vic is older. Vic is 2 years older than me. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm sure. I know I'm going to do it this summer. Lo and behold, a couple months later, we find out Jen is pregnant. So when we find out, I'm not like, oh no, what happened with my... I'm excited because in my mind, I was already somewhere along that path with her. So I was glad Vic was there in the kitchen that night so that he could tell Jen and her parents later on, no, he was going to do this before we knew that Isaiah was coming. It was so very important to our story.
I'm just thinking, it just came to mind that moment in the hospital where the doctor says, this is your choice.
Right.
And I think, I'm just curious, do people question your choice on that?
Yes, all the time. Even the same doctor who said that to us, she's wonderful, and I believe she's one of the only reasons why Isaiah is here. She was the NICU doctor, and she said, this is a choice, and I just need you both to understand what could happen if your child makes it past these first few stages, first few days, first few hours of being in the NICU, that this can be a life-altering decision. So I actually worked with her for a couple of years after that. And
as a nurse practitioner,
I didn't work in the same department, but I would see her as a registered nurse. And every time she saw me, she would say, I have never seen a baby that was born so early and has survived. I just don't understand. You guys are both so young. How did you do this? And she constantly, and I last saw her at a conference, I think it was last April, and she said, how is Isaiah? I still just can't believe that he's alive and that he made it this far. And she always asked us what made us, decide to do this. And it comes back to our faith and just that, we felt that God placed this child to be with us. And that's what we decided we were going to do, raise him and let him have the happiest life possible.
And you had said on the phone that, faith is so important for both of you.
Right.
But you came to faith after Isaiah was born.
Well, we were...
Or you were already going
right.
We were going to church. You were Catholic,
right,
going to church. But in terms of it really taking root in your lives.
Right. So we exactly. We both grew up in families that had strong faith, and I believe our parents are the actual reasons why we're both so strong in our faith. We had the upbringing from an early age. But I don't think I felt a real connection with God and growth within myself until after Isaiah was born. It wasn't until about 2012 we started going to a church where we really felt that we were at home. And
why did you decide to go to church? Because I think that's so scary sometimes.
The same
to explore our like,
of course,
spiritual life, and
Right.
it's hard to figure out where to start.
For us, I don't think it was scary. I think we always had that that mentality where you would go to church on Sunday, but same brother Vic, who's I guess very pivotal in our life.
Yeah.
Shout out to Vic. Vic and his wife Hannah, they invited us to go to church with them. They were going to a church already in Queens, and we just went to visit, and the rest is history. We became members a couple months later and have been going ever since. Yeah.
And that kind of guides your work as well, Kevin, right? When you talk about, when I hear you talk about like bringing purpose for the children that you work with now with your company, it sounds almost like that morality or that moral, I hate even using that word. I just want to retract that word for everyone listening. Forget I said that. That's not the right word I'm looking for. I guess what I'm trying to say is like your heart for all of that seems like it's rooted somewhere outside of yourself.
It definitely is. But I do have to state that from a younger age, I'd say going back to high school when I really started to think about the world, I already knew that it was all of our responsibilities to make a positive impact in our community.
You knew that as a kid?
In the world. High school, college.
How in the world did you know that?
I would assume somehow my parents instilled it in me, right? Just like how they would, as Jen said, my parents as well. They're Catholic. We would go to church every Sunday. They were grounded in faith, still are, and my mom is an excellent teacher and influence, as is my dad, as far as being an example. So I understood that there was more to life than material, because when I was early in high school and I got my first job, I started buying all these clothes and stuff, and my mom was like, hey, you got to cut this materialism out. This doesn't mean anything. Do you understand? So she said this to me for like 3 years, because of course I didn't listen, but at some point I got the message like, all right, this is not important. This isn't the end all. Whatever I'm thinking as far as clothes, cars, and money, there's more to it than this.
I'm just trying to understand how you knew that, because when I think about, and this is, when I think about kids, I think about like all the stuff that they're looking at online, and I wonder how it is to tease that apart. You know, like that aspirational, the cars, the clothes, the makeup, the YouTube, makeup tutorials that I might go down rabbit holes on. Me too. And this but how do you tease that apart? Because I'm hearing it from your personal story, and I know that's part of your messaging too for young people.
Well, this is the whole reason why I do KS for Inspiration and speak to this audience, is because of the inputs that the students, the youth, are getting from all these different places. They go on social media and they feel they have to look a certain way or act a certain way or be a certain way. They listen to their music, and their music tells them, if you ain't making money, you ain't nothing, right? And all these messages give them a convoluted view of what matters. And if they are not in a position where at home they have the influences that can tell them a little bit about life and meaning, and potentially lead them to a faith direction that will give them a larger sense of purpose, then they can start to worship the world and what the world offers to them. And this is why I go into these places, because these workshops, these interactions are opportunities for me to say, stop, look around.
Okay, but do they stop, and do they put their phone down?
They stop.
They
put
do?
Their phone down. Like I said,
okay, because when I speak to high schoolers,
the poetry.
The poetry. I need to get some poetry.
We also tell them to put your phones away.
Okay, but
we have to state
when
that.
when I speak sometimes. I love my kids because afterwards I'm always surprised that they're so like open and impacted. But definitely when I look into the audience, they are on their phones, and that I get nervous and kind of disrupted as a speaker and insecure. But it's amazing that, obviously the poetry supports that they really connect with that art and then are able to really hear your messaging beyond the material stuff.
Right. And let me really to break down what I do when I go. I am not the person to go up there and speak to the kids for an hour. I just do not do that. I'm an inspirational speaker in a sense. It's part of branding, right? How do you position yourself to people? Inspirational speaker, fine. Here's what I do though. I'm coming here and knowing that it is not me who is inspiring them. If you're inspired, it's because you're drawing a connection between something that's important to you and a direction you want to go. All I'm doing is questioning individuals to make them think for themselves.
What kind of questions are you asking them?
It's not even just questions, though. What it is putting them in circumstances and situations where they can experience different things. So, like I said, I don't come in and speak. I come in and I create activities and different sort of elements so that they can experience things that may change their perspectives.
Oh, wait. Pause. Was that your phone? Wait, Matt. Was that?
It was. I think it was
Siri.
Siri.
I'll turn this up.
Oh,
I think Siri came.
sorry.
on.
We're having some technical difficulties. We're able to cut that out, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, you're interrupting us. Sorry.
Somehow turn back on.
All right.
See, that's why Instagram ads are so scary.
It hears what you say.
It does really.
It does.
It does. It's really scary. Also, sometimes I'm like, I'm already doing that. Don't give me that. Totally unrelated. We're editing that out.
Right, sorry.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry. Let me think about where we were exactly.
We're talking about how do I actually get the kids engaged?
You put them
Right.
in activities.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So, just as a side note, and like I said, we're gonna edit this out.
Right.
I want to make sure that like people are understanding like how that plays into their life.
Okay.
So I wonder if there's a way to apply it, like as an example in the room, or like, can you give us a specific story of kids, of like a child that you like that has had a conversation? Like, can you zero in on like one moment that kind of was a catalyst moment for you to see like this is actually working?
Oh yeah, certainly.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Let me. I don't. My brain is mush today.
No,
We got
it's
caught up
okay.
watching that like Netflix show Rhythm and Flow, and it was like about chat. It's a rap competition. It was amazing. Okay. So sorry.
It's okay.
So okay, where were we? We talking about the workshops, right? So we'll pick up on. Okay. Okay, take us into the room, Kevin, about like what that looks like.
Yeah. Well, I can give you an example of a time where it was pretty clear to me that I reached a young child. This was a moment where I was invited by the folks at Metro World Child in Brooklyn, which is a Christian organization. They do sidewalk ministry where they, on a night of the week, they'll come to a certain corner or block or project, and they will essentially teach a lesson about Christ. So kids will just come, they'll sit on a little tarp and get a nice show and learn a little bit about God, about Jesus Christ. They invited me to perform a poem at one of their weekend events. So I came by. It was a lot of children, and you can actually see the pictures on @KS4Inspiration on Instagram. And as I performed this poem, I got the energy back from the audience, right? These are young kids, really young kids, actually. We're talking about like 5 to 9, right? 10 years old. And when this poem is done, not just the response, everybody gives their applause, but then as the kids are going back to their bus later, and I'm just standing at the back because I just want to say hi to the kids and, give them some encouragement. And one of these kids, a bunch of them actually said, "Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much for the poem." One of these kids come and says, "Kevin, thank you so much. Please take this." And she hands me a quarter.
Oh my gosh,
And
that's adorable.
she just wanted.
How old is she?
I don't know how
maybe
old she was.
like
I didn't get
7,
to ask.
maybe 7.
Yeah,
Yeah,
how she
she
look?
was very young. She was like, Kevin, please take this. Like, she wanted to compensate me for the.
Oh, that's so
But
adorable.
the feeling I got from that interaction was, thank you so much. And it really meant a lot to me that obviously I said something that resonated with her to the point where she wanted to give me a quarter. And who knows what that quarter meant to her, but a gift from a little child meant something for me, no matter how small. So those little evidences of impact is what keeps me going. When I perform a poem and people tell me, that really touched me. Like at the Loud Summit where we were at, I had a few conversations with people.
And the poem, just for some context, the poem that you spoke about was really about Isaiah and that journey for you both.
That's right. That's right. And that poem about Isaiah's story, I call it Isaiah's song, it's so very personal to me, but the elements of despair and then hope are common themes that apply to everyone. And so the people who are coming up to me didn't have a child who struggled with cerebral palsy and chronic lung. They had their own issues that were plaguing them, but the poem allowed them to open up and feel vulnerable. And that's what's most important when you're trying to build connections with people.
How do we go, Jen, I'm curious about your perspective on this, kind of, because you're always getting the opportunity to see Kevin's work from an observer perspective.
Right.
What kind of messaging and lessons have you learned sort of along this journey about how to go from despair to hope?
Right. So Kevin and I, we've spoke about that before. We deal with Isaiah and situations in life a lot differently from one another. We always end up on the same page, but the route that we get there is always completely different. I am always in go mode, and I just get things done, and I do it, and I don't think about it until maybe even months, years later. So, I mean, talking it out is what I learned to do. We talk a lot. I confide in my family, in Kev, in friends, and I did start going to therapy, and that helped a lot. That helped a lot. I really
Therapy. What made you decide to go to therapy?
Well, I think it was because I realized I'm like, well, I can't wait till things are wrong to to go and see a therapist. If I feel like they may be okay, but maybe they're not. I'm not sure. Let's go talk it out. I think it's great to have someone where you can that's completely removed from the situation, and it can give a enlightened perspective on things that are going on. And from that, I learned, a lot of other things that I didn't even realize were going on in my head subconsciously were coming to light. So that was great.
What were some of the things that kind of surprised you about that process?
I think I think I told you this, Kev, I can't remember. But one of the most poignant things I learned is that just because you feel that you have to offer somebody else help doesn't mean that they have to accept your help, if that makes sense. So
wait, play that back for me.
No, it's okay.
No, I mean, say that one more time.
Yeah, so just because you feel that you're in a position to help someone doesn't mean that the person who you think needs help wants your help.
Oh, so we're talking about boundaries.
Right. I always feel like, okay, well, I should do this. I should help this person. I got to go there. I got to do that. And the therapist told me to calm down.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like straight up?
Calm down.
Oh, wow.
And set it apart.
Wow.
Yeah.
So really taking that time for yourself.
Right.
Was that hard for you?
It was, because I thought I was being a good person. And she said, you are a good person. You're doing it from a good part of your heart. But that doesn't mean that that's what somebody else wants or needs. It might actually just be making you feel better about the situation.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
That is deep.
And you wow, that is so, isn't that
awesome?
Funny, because we think that we're trying to, we're supporting somebody, but
subconsciously it's just making us feel better about the situation, because then we have control as to what's going on.
There was something I learned in counseling, in some of my counseling training. I am not a trained counselor, by the way. Any listeners who are listening right now, do not take my advice as medical advice. Please definitely seek out your own therapy. But
neither am I, by the way.
Yeah, none of us are. But when I was doing some counseling education, and they always talked about this, like when you're working with a client or when you're talking with a friend who's going through something, not to hand them a tissue.
Right.
Because it dismisses what's happening
Let
for
them
them.
feel what they feel.
Yes,
Right.
because otherwise you're truncating that experience for them, and that offering that tissue is more about you and your
wanting to help them and just make the situation.
Yeah, because it's uncomfortable for you.
Right.
So that you have to like do something to like solve it.
Right.
Or calm it down. But yeah, actually letting people feel their feelings and holding space for that is way more supportive.
So yeah, so apart from that, the talking it out either with family, therapy, I also think that it was very poignant to remember that I'm not an island, that I can ask other people to help me with things. I do not need to be in charge of A, B, C, D to Z. I can say, hey, Kev, can you help me out with this, please? Or I really need help.
Was that hard? Because you were talking just now about like how driven you are and how you get things done.
It was hard because my biggest issue was a control issue and having to always be.
Did you realize that about yourself before?
No, I did not. It also ties in with faith too. I think that I learned, we took a class a couple of years back called Who Am I at church. And I learned that is my biggest issue of not realizing that I am not the one that's in control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I felt better by saying, okay, if I do this and then I do that, then I can prevent this from happening, and then this will go this way.
So you're almost like hyper vigilant, like
yes.
There
we go.
When did that?
That's a perfect word.
When did that start for you? Was that always how you were as a kid?
No, because I don't think so. That's a good question. I gotta go back, play the highlight reel. But I think that it started with Isaiah. I think because I realized, okay, if we prevent, this from happening, maybe we could prevent him from getting a cold, and then he won't have to go to the hospital, and then we'll prevent this and that. And so that just was how my mind has been working for the past 9 years. I'd say the past 7, I've been realizing, okay, no, it's not you. You gotta let go and let God.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's a tough lesson.
Yeah.
1 second. Matt, can you guys like talk a little lower, because I'm getting super distracted, because since I'm closer to you guys, I'm just hearing the echo a little easier. Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm like, okay. I get distracted easily. I apologize.
It's okay. Yeah. So.
I'm just trying to think how to segue back in. Yes.
No, it's okay.
That's here.
I think it's this way.
Oh, you know what? Sorry, Matt. That's the other guys. I'm sorry. That's the other side. I'm so sorry about that. You guys are fine. My apologies.
I'll go yell at them, though.
Sorry about that. Okay. Goodness. I'm so sorry, you guys.
No, it's okay.
Okay, on the therapy note, I think that one thing we talk about in trauma recovery is that as kids, if you've gone through something, you're like thinking like 12 steps ahead just to try and like strategize so you're not put in that situation again. And for me personally, it's been hard to like reel that back in and be present and think about the moment without spinning my wheels. And I think that really brings us out of, the experience that we can have with each other. So when your counselor sort of worked with you and you sort of started getting illuminated to that, like for me, when I started getting illuminated to that, I was like, man, but I'm really good at that.
Right.
That's the thing I'm really good at.
Right. So
don't take that away from me.
Right. I did try and justify it at first. I was like, yeah, I hear you, but I'm pretty sure that she needs my help. Or I'm pretty sure Kev would like me to do that.
Yeah.
And but she was like, okay, but you have to understand that's what you're feeling. That may not be what they're feeling.
So how did you self-soothe then? Like, how did you calm yourself down in those moments when like you're like, oh man, here it comes?
I think it just worked for me. I said to myself, all right, Jen, this is the professional here. Like, you're coming here because you're seeking help. It didn't take too long to convince me. I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. After a couple times of saying, well, but I think, and then she would counteract and I would say, all right, you know what? I think you're right. And now as I look at the situation, I see a difference. I really do see a difference. another thing that Kev, taught me too is that not having to do everything for somebody, but just being present in the moment. I was never present. I was always thinking about how I could help or how I could do this or what would be best. And I was never just present. So just learning, the therapist didn't tell me that one though. That was Dr. Kev.
Well, thank you.
That one.
Kevin Saunders.
Just being present in moments and enjoying them, which I thought I did, but I wasn't. I was always thinking, okay, now after this, we're going to do this. And it's just now it's a lot. I can say that I sit back a lot more and I'm able to relax a little bit more.
Oh my gosh.
I think so. Would you agree?
To be at rest.
I would certainly say that is the case.
Okay.
What if sort of you noticed in this journey? Because it's interesting when we have an observer walking alongside of when we're working through our mental health or mental wellness process and really diving into those like kind of hard places. What was that like for you?
Yeah, there were some really down times for us. I think sometimes people think when they see our pictures on Instagram, they assume, oh, these two got it together.
Right. I mean,
our videos look pretty good, but no, that's not really.
For those who are listening, not getting a chance to watch this video, they showed up in this studio. Like Kevin is wearing like a pressed nice suit with like a pocket scarf. Is that what it's called?
Pocket square.
Excuse me, pocket square. And Jen is in this like really nice like business outfit and with their hair, and I'm like in jeans, and it's amazing.
Jessica's crushing it too.
Jessica looks great.
The reason why we're dressed like this, aside for wanting to show up to your podcast dressed to the nines, we're also gonna take this opportunity for a little date night. That's the key to any strong relationship. Date night.
That's true, and I mean that. But to your point, that is like massive with Isaiah, with everything that's going on at home. You both are like career people. To take that time out, I mean, that's a small victory, to be able to give that gift to yourself.
Absolutely.
But you were saying like so, Jen is going through this journey of working through these difficult parts.
So what I was about to say was, there were some pretty dark times because, Jen is working through something that, I worked through earlier in my own way. And now she's going through it, and it's visible, it's noticeable, and we feel drawn apart by it. And it's evident to the point where we have to talk about this being drawn apart.
Right. Both
of us notice it. And, around that time is when she started to, go ahead, seek help via therapy.
So this is before the counseling sort of started.
Yeah, so before the counseling started.
Where is this in the like kind of
timeline?
In the timeline with with Isaiah and where he was in treatment.
So I think I was very good at suppressing anything that I was feeling with Isaiah.
I think we're all very good at
suppressing.
But there's a saying, what's suppressed will be expressed.
Exactly. Yeah. So it took 7 years for it to come out. I think that I started having some anxiety, some is an understatement, a lot of anxiety in about 2017.
What did that look like for you?
For me, like just very, very functional anxiety and depression. Like I could go to work, I can get up and go to work, I can take care of home, but I was just extremely, extremely anxious. Mm-hmm. And I think at that point, the only person who knew was Kev.
Yes. And aside from that, it was functional for a while, but there was a point where it was no longer functional. And that's when the therapy came in and we started to see Jen come out of it. But from my perspective, what it felt like was distance. It felt like walking on eggshells around individuals, especially when, you feel like everything is going right and going better, but no matter what, someone else is feeling off and down, and there's nothing you could do to help. So you feel helpless as well. Mm-hmm. Right? So knowing that I couldn't cure whatever it is that she's going through, I encouraged her, why don't you go try to talk this out with therapy? Because we can't continue going on like this. Whatever the divide is now, it will only get bigger if we don't get help.
Right.
So thankfully, Jen did go.
Jen, you were responsive to that.
I was, yeah. I thought that it was, yeah. I mean, I did also confide in my mom, and she did, of course, express the same sentiment. But I think the key thing is to still go when you feel okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think
yeah,
so.
because
Yeah.
it's easy to think that we're all good. But I agree with that. I found in my personal journey with healing from my own traumas that I guess I kind of look at it like going to a counselor is like going to get some personal training.
Right.
And then you're at the gym with
Going
those
for a
tools that
checkup.
you've learned
Absolutely.
over time. And then, going in for a checkup
Absolutely.
to make sure you got your form right.
That's right.
And you're maxing it out, that you're really
Right.
pushing yourself in the ways that are good. It's amazing that you were receptive to it because I think it's really hard to be receptive to someone else.
Right. I think because I just hated feeling the way I was feeling, and I'm like, no, we gotta fix this. Yeah, I think it was a consensus. Not like I felt like Kev was like, oh no, you gotta do this. I felt the same way.
What would you tell someone who maybe is listening and thinking like, no, thank you, I'm good, I got this.
Right. I mean, it's a personal decision. You can't force anyone to do something that they don't want to do. But I personally feel that it's been of great benefit.
Yeah.
And I would recommend it to anyone. I think, if you're struggling or not struggling, if you feel like you're good or you feel like you're not so good, you should just go and check it out.
Yeah, I agree. And you actually brought some resources for maybe some families or loved ones who are listening that might be going through a similar situation with their child.
Right, correct. So there is one website that actually, if you go to it, you can find everything you need in terms of resources. It's called Specialneedsplanning.net. They list different organizations that can help you receive services for your child in terms of advocacy, either teach you how to advocate for your child or set you up with someone who would be able to do that for you. Different government agencies and Social Security income that can help you pay for different expenses if you are having a tough financial time. Teaching you how to navigate insurance and healthcare, medical options that you have, even different housing organizations. They can hook you up with a lot of different things that you may need. In terms of caregiver support, which I think is a huge thing, caregiver burnout is real. It's it's a real thing.
Tell me a little bit about both of your experiences with that.
Right. So we didn't have help with Isaiah for almost 3 years. We did have a nurse for him for a couple hours a day at one point when we were home, but we were hardly home.
Right.
We were always living in a hospital. So we did have quite a bit of burnout. But when Isaiah, for the past 6 years, we have had nursing care for him. So even the reason we're able to be here today is because Isaiah has a nurse with him if we're not at home. Mm-hmm. And he also, has a nurse when we're able to work. And it just really helps a lot.
When did you know that? Did you feel the same way, Kevin, that you like a little burned out as a caregiver?
I did. Just to give people a sense of what the days were like when we were living in the hospital, essentially living in the hospital. We were at Blythedale's Children's Hospital, which is an outstanding facility, sort of a rehab facility for children. And let's say that night I happened to spend the night with Isaiah because we would never leave him in the hospital by himself without one of us there, right? So I would spend the night. At that point in time, I was back to work. So they had a house not too far from the hospital. We just would be able to stay in there a few days at a time, go to that house, get dressed, get ready for work, drive to Stamford, Connecticut, work for the day, come back to the hospital, relieve Jen if she was there all day for a few hours. Right, maybe she's staying the night, maybe I'm staying the night. If I'm staying the night, that means I woke up in the morning, went to work, came back, and then stayed in the hospital again.
Is there a bed for you? Or are you guys sleeping on chairs?
Flipped into a flat bed. It actually wasn't that uncomfortable. Or maybe we grew used to it. I don't even know. But, after you spent 2-3 years living out of a hospital.
You were literally living out of a hospital. That's not like hyperbole.
We had bags that we take with
like we
us
bought groceries and put it in the hospital fridge.
Right. And what helped was that we had our parents, my parents,
very
20
close.
minutes away. So, if we wanted to just go to their house, get a meal, maybe one of us spend the night there every once in a while. And then my parents would come. Sometimes my dad would stay the night. Sometimes my mom would come.
That's so nice.
They'll relieve Jen's parents.
Thanks, Mom and Dad, if you're listening.
Thank you. Seriously, thank you. So again,
did you ever feel guilty leaving? Like, were there times when you just could not, neither of you were just not able to, and no family were able to just that one night spend the night? How did you deal with that?
No, we never had that at Blythedale.
No.
So you were there never a day when Isaiah was in the hospital. Was he by himself?
Right. We did have.
That's incredible.
One time when he was at another hospital, there was a snowstorm, and we couldn't get there. I think we got home, but weren't able to get back. So that was rough.
And when in the beginning, when he was in the NICU,
we couldn't stay overnight.
Right, you're not allowed to stay in the neonatal ICU because those children are very unstable conditions. So
right. And they're just there weren't any accommodations either.
Yeah.
Right.
So they wouldn't. They would tell us to go home.
What would you tell other parents who are like, I'm exhausted?
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard. So, again, there are services for caregivers. Even if you're having something called caregiver burnout, they have respite care.
So, just to pause for a second, what on earth is? I mean, we've just been talking about it for a little bit, but now that I'm realizing, like, caregiver burnout can look so different for everybody.
It could.
What did it look like for like you waking up in the morning, Jennifer? What was that like?
Well, I think I don't remember being burnt out. I don't remember being burnt out, but I know I was in retrospect. I remember waking up and just feeling like, okay, this is what we got to do. We're going to do it. Yeah. That's it.
I think there was a point in time where this became such the normal course of action for us, and it happened pretty early because prior to going to Blythedale, we were in, 2 Queens hospitals, Long Island hospitals for a period of time. At some point, it became a way of life to the point that we probably wouldn't even recognize what the burnout was.
Right.
Yeah, because it just became
part of it. What it was.
Normal.
But I will say that even if that was burnout for us, that type of schedule that I described, we were in a fortunate position to have someone at least relieve us for 3-4 hours at a time.
Right.
I don't know what we would do if we didn't have that. So there are people out there who are going through similar situations that have no relief. Those people, I feel for you all. You have my prayers. I don't know from my perspective what that would feel like. All I could say is these resources that Jen is providing, if you find yourself in need of help, please seek it. Having a child that's ill or just in general, let's just break it down to people who are struggling in life. Right. There is nothing that you have to go through alone, especially if you live in this country, right? This country allows us so many resources, so many outlets to ask for help. There are so many nonprofits that go the extra mile for individuals. Don't be too prideful to ask for help if you do find yourself in a point where you're burnt out without help around you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know for me in human rights, being burnt out, like we call it empathy burnout.
Right.
It looked like I wasn't sleeping. I was starting to get really cynical.
Yes.
And making like really inappropriate jokes in the wrong communities.
Right.
I was just, my fuse got really, really short.
Absolutely.
And I just couldn't find joy and stuff. My mind was just like kind of, again, hypervigilant, trying to like problem solve. It was just like there was something inside of me that like my actual personality was just like rummaging through files to try and figure out how to problem solve this one thing. And I just wasn't, like you're saying, Jen and Kevin, like I just wasn't present.
Right.
And for me, that's when I kind of knew when there was no more, I wasn't getting, like I went into human rights to really make a difference, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I wasn't seeing that difference, and so I was just getting more and more depressed. Like I got sucked into that tragedy that I was really there and hoping to try and support these people.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like a sense of hopelessness, right? When you're not
I think you like knocked it on the head,
that you had intended to make, or when you start to see the issue is so grand that you alone will not be able to tackle it.
Right. You feel defeated.
That can be debilitating. Yeah. It can also be empowering, because when we're talking about purpose, and what I'm about to explain is something that those in the 6 Seconds community. So for those who don't know, 6 Seconds is the Emotional Intelligence Network, and I'm a certified social emotional intelligence practitioner. And one of the things we talk about is knowing yourself and what we call pursuing noble goals. Pursuing noble goals is really setting a goal that can't be achieved in your lifetime, right? That does no harm to others, and many other criteria. But when you have this noble goal that you know no matter how hard you try, it will never be accomplished in your life, you know that you're doing the work for the impact that you're making and not for the completion of it, right?
Wow.
And that's something that will keep you aligned as you set other goals along that path. You could look at that noble goal as a North Star.
So that, I mean, I feel like that, as you're saying that, I'm just thinking how that almost flips the idea of success on its head. Because success almost, for me, like when I think of that concept, it's about, like accomplishing that goal and then on to the next one. But you're saying that actually maybe it isn't that.
No, if you can complete the goal in your lifetime, you probably didn't set the goal high enough, right? It's something that
oh my gosh.
you should be striving for continuously, so that there is always something that you're pursuing and working toward. The trouble is when that noble goal is not noble and not tied to a purpose larger than yourself, right? Then your goals become about you. They tend to become about the world, and they tend to become about material.
How do you know when that's happened?
Well, look at your goals. Really think about what's important to you and what drives the decisions that you're making.
Can you give us an example of like what you're speaking to, a noble goal versus like another aspirational goal?
So here's an example of my noble goal, which is to inspire others to live purposefully. I will never be able to complete that in my lifetime. There's 6 billion people plus in the world, if I got that number right. A whole lot more, I'm sure. Is that something I could achieve in my lifetime? No. But I can wake up every day and work toward that goal. I only know that because it was instilled in me via my faith. I felt like that was a directive given to me by God. That's how I know that. An example of was something that may not be a noble goal, but just may be a short-term goal. And this is the context in which a lot of the youth that I speak to think. I was there before, right? We're thinking in high school, I'm going to go to college, but why? Because I want to get a good job, to make some money, to get some new clothes, and finally get out my mama's house. That's why I want to go to college, right? And then I asked them, okay, so you all are so bright students. Let's say in 5 years that you've graduated, you got your job, and you're able to move out. You got your car. Let's say 3 years later, you got your home. Then what? And the crickets that I get when the students are like, oh. And you could see it's like their first time that they're thinking about it.
I'm just saying, like we live in New York. Mm-hmm. We see on Instagram. We'll just go back to that gram.
Right.
Because that is such a feature right now in the world, which drives me crazy. But what we see as goals are like, hypothetically, like for some communities, it's graduating from college. For other people, it's like landing that job, or even like getting married is like that's the goal, or having kids is the goal, and that's what I'm working towards. So what I hear you saying is like, no, it's more this like more noble goal. It's like, what's the long-term effect you're leaving on the world? But how do you like not like how do you reorient your directions so that you're okay with not accomplishing it? If that makes sense. You're okay, like...
Well, you are accomplishing it in a sense when you're living it, right? It's just that it won't be completely accomplished, right? Because you'll never reach the whole world. There'll always be dissension.
So you're saying, like, you're kind of in the process of accomplishing it while you're moving towards it.
While you're moving. And it just ties back to what I tell people all the time, like, when you get caught up in the end result, the finish line, the completion, you'll completely miss the race, the progress. You spend 1 second at completion, you spend 25.99 miles in the race. You need to find your joy, your purpose, your passion, your mission within the race and not at the end of it. Because anytime you get to the end, what happens is relief. A letdown, right?
Yeah.
You did it. Woo!
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Right? But that race, that adrenaline that's flowing while you're going through it, that's everything. That's your whole life. That's the whole process. So noble goal is keeping you aligned, right? It's a race that will never end, essentially. And then you can have like little short sprints along the way. And these short sprints are all different. It's fine. I'm not telling anybody, hey, you shouldn't aspire to own a home. You shouldn't aspire to get a nice job. I'm saying that if you're setting these goals, make sure you keep them in context, that these are not the end-all, be-all goals. These are steps along a path, right? These are steps in life. But if this is the goal for you to get this big mansion, once you get it, don't be surprised if you're disappointed.
Jen, that almost makes me think a little bit of your story. And what's incredible really about you two is that like you've been able to do this like, I think, are we over? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had it in my head that I've lost track of time. I'm so sorry, Matt. Oh my gosh. I had it in my head that it was 5. I'm so sorry, Matt. Please forgive me. Oh my gosh. How did I do that? I swear I'm usually really good at this. Okay, I'll just wrap it up.
Sure.
Jen, you have really talked about your goal and purpose, which is like education. That's kind of come out of like your journey as a pediatric nurse, which is amazing that you were doing that already. And then Isaiah came into your lives.
Right.
I would love to just hear like really quick, just like 2 sentences maybe on like some suggestions on purpose for maybe those who are listening.
Yeah, I think in terms of purpose, you shouldn't, again, reiterating what Kev said, don't go after it for money. Don't go after it for fame. Go after it because you feel that it's something that will help to fulfill you and fulfill your purpose in the world. Not something that's just going to make you feel good for a couple minutes. Money really isn't everything. And I think a lot of people, I train a lot of new nurses and I educate a lot of nursing students, and a lot of times they tell me that they go into it for the money and for the schedule, and that's not a reason to do something. I think that if you're doing something with your heart, that it's going to transform every element of your life. And I think that that's the biggest takeaway I have. Do something because you feel like it's going to make a difference, not because it's just feels good for a little bit.
That's right. I would second that completely because like Jen was saying, it can't be the reason. It can be a factor in the larger equation. It cannot be the reason that you pursue something.
I love that. And I think just about your story too, and everything that you're kind of like embracing both, that you can have purpose and that you can be living this fulfilled life even while you're struggling, or even while, this other stuff might be happening that's overwhelming, and that there's resources out there. So we're going to put the resources in our show notes online, and we'll definitely celebrate your work as well. I'll put your links in, Kevin, so that people can get involved with your work.
Thank you.
I wish we had time for your spoken word poetry, but we will definitely, again, also link in that. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I think there is so much wisdom in your story, and I'm just so honored that you took the time to share it with us.
Thank you for having us.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for having us. Peace to everybody out there. Appreciate it.
Matt, please forgive me. I'm so sorry about that.
I didn't want to interrupt. It was so good.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
I'm usually I'm like on the minute done, but I had it in my brain that it was 5 for some reason.
Thank you so much.
Matt, do you mind taking a photo of us?
Oh, should I
When you
put
get a
these
chance?
on? I feel professional when I have these on.
Okay, do that. Guys, I'm so sorry.
That was
no,
awesome.
no.
That was, we had a
That was
blast.
fun. It didn't even.
I thought
You
we were
told
just
me it was gonna
started,
feel
man.
like a conversation, and it did. Thank you. I was so nervous.
Thank you, guys.
You're excellent at this.
You are.
Excellent.
You're great.
As a host.
You guys were easy. Easy.
Oh man.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, we went over 20 minutes.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
wow.
20 minutes. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh.
It's all right. Matt's here till midnight, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Give or take. Yeah. This is
fun.
awesome.
That was
So
fun.
yeah, so you're doing the podcast. You'll
Yeah.
launch it. All right. And so you're going into the media
So
route.
weird not to have these on.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's
Oh,
so
take
weird
it-
to talk to you and not have these
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Do you guys have time for like a coffee or anything?
Yeah, sure.
I
Yeah, sure.
don't want to hijack. date night.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry
Thank
about
you,
that.
Matt.
Sorry, everything was saved.
Yeah.
Are people waiting on the studio too? Did I
Nope,
just
they're
like
not
major
here yet,
mess
but
it up?
we do have a show at
Gonna
5.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
Let's put on our headphones.
Oh,
It's
okay,
like we're
yes.
like, yeah, and just one like this and then one like that,
Sure.
if that's cool with you. Okay.
Make sure you can see them.
Oh, can you
Pocket
see?
square.
Can they see you? The pockets.
Okay,
Thank you so
brilliant.
much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was so much fun.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jessica.
Oh my gosh, thank you guys.
That was great.
That is so funny.
It was a good convo.
I'm just in it, you know?
Yeah. That's the best way to be.
I had a blast personally.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I can send you guys the raw version.
Sure.
He's gonna send it probably later today.
Okay.
Don't share it if you don't
No,
mind.
no,
Oh,
no,
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 absolutely
This
not.
will just be the unedited, but so you guys can
Yeah.
hear it.
No, that would
That'd
be
be great.
great.
And then yeah, if anything comes to mind that you're like, ooh, I didn't want to say that on there.
Mhm.